Yo, what is up guys? In today's video I'm going to be using Madden 21 to help you draft your fantasy team. So what I've done is I've created a franchise with the current rosters, and I've just simmed the first season, and I've done this sort of over and over again and just looked at the stats at the end of the year. And so I'm going to sort of use all of that data to tell you which players you should draft and which players you should stay away from. But a disclaimer before I start: obviously this is Madden. This isn't necessarily how the season is going to play out. This is the preseason roster, so as the season goes on, the overalls and the way that the players are playing is going to change. So if you don't win your fantasy season, don't come crying to me complaining that, oh, you told me to pick him, or you told me not to pick him, because as I said, this is just a simulation. This isn't real life, and there's a lot of factors that go into the NFL. First, I'm going to show you guys the yearly awards. I picked this franchise because I thought it showed pretty well the overall trends that I've been seeing with the players. So first of all, in most fantasy leagues, Mahomes and Lamar are going top 20, top 25. I would advise not taking them. In all the simulations I've done, like over 10, Mahomes has finished in the top 5 in MVP once, and I don't think that Lamar has been up there at all. So stay away from them. I don't think they're that valuable. They're definitely good, but in all these simulations, they're finishing top 10, top 15. Not significantly better than anyone else. So as you can see, this franchise, Matt Ryan finished number 1 in the MVP. In a lot of the franchise I've done, he's been very high. He and Drew Brees are sort of the two that are consistently in the top 5, top 10. So I would definitely advise looking into taking them. The other QBs that I'm high on are Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy G, and Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson is usually up here too, but he's taken pretty highly in leagues as well. So if you can get him, I'm not going to tell you not to get him. I think he's a very good player. He's done pretty well in a lot of these leagues, but not not significantly better than the rest of the pack. So I'm going to go over to passing stats in the NFL. So as you can see, Matt Ryan, most passing yards, most passing touchdowns. Cam is always up here, top 5. Rodgers is up there a lot. Darnold, kind of surprising. He's in some of these he does really well, and others not so great. So maybe for a QB2. Another guy that I'm really high on is Justin Herbert. He's by far performing the best out of the rookie quarterbacks. He's usually top 10, whereas Tua and Burrow are bottom of the pack. Tua's almost always last or one of the last, so I would advise to stay away from him. Burrow as well is not performing that great in a lot of these, so maybe stay away from him. Another quarterback that generally does not do very well, let's see if I can find him, is Kirk Cousins. He actually did decent in this franchise, but in a lot of them he's bottom 5. Ben Roethlisberger as well, bottom 5 almost all the time, and Kyler too. Kyler really struggles in a lot of these. So, and I know Kyler goes really high in a lot of fantasy leagues, so I would advise against taking Kyler. Probably against taking quarterback super early as well, because as I said, it's usually Cam, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees. Rodgers is probably the highest quarterback that's performing consistently well. Dak Prescott, I would advise against taking Dak. He's usually towards the bottom. Let's see where he is here. Yeah, towards the bottom. I would advise against that. He's almost never top 10. Russell Wilson is low on this one, but he generally does pretty well in these. So if you can get him, a mid round pick, I would take him. He's never top, but he usually finishes in the top 10 in terms of scoring. And then as I touched on before, Jimmy G usually does decent in these, not great, but I know he's not valued very highly. So if you can get him as a QB2, I would definitely try to take him. And one more guy, Phillip Rivers. He actually does surprisingly well in all of these. I know he didn't do great in this one, but you know, he for his value, I would definitely consider him as a QB2 as well, because in a lot of these he finishes top 10 or even top 5. And one last guy, surprisingly enough, let's see where I can find him. Mitch Trubisky. For some reason, he's always top 10 every single one, and I don't understand it. I know I've seen him play. He's not good, but in almost all of these franchise simulations, he finishes high. So I don't know if I could even give advice to draft him, but you know, Madden's telling me that. So in conclusion, I would stay away from drafting Kyler, Mahomes, and Lamar, as well as stay away from Kirk Cousins, Tua, and Big Ben, and Dak as well, and Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is always towards the bottom, but the big four that I would say stay away from is Mahomes, Kyler, Lamar, and Dak. And I would advise you towards drafting Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and potentially Baker Mayfield, potentially Phillip Rivers, Jimmy G, Mitch Trubisky, Justin Herbert as a QB2. Alright, for the running backs. So right off the bat, Zeke and McCaffrey finished top 2, 1, 2, or vice versa in every single one of these leagues. You know, it's either Zeke and then McCaffrey, or McCaffrey and then Zeke. So definitely get one of those guys. Next, Kamara and Saquon both perform very well. Usually top 5, if not then top 10. So maybe a tier lower than McCaffrey and Zeke, but definitely still buy high with them. Others you should look into: Nick Chubb, Chris Carson, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So Chubb also finishes very high consistently, as well as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know he's going decently high, even though he's a rookie, but definitely look into him. He's always one of the top performers. Dalvin Cook, interesting here. There's been a few simulations where he's finished, you know, top 3, top 5, but he's very inconsistent. A lot of them he hasn't broken 1,000 yards. He's well under 10 touchdowns. So this is actually one of his better performances. So I am somewhat skeptical on Dalvin Cook. So I would advise maybe stay away from him. Todd Gurley. Definitely stay away from Todd Gurley, Devonta Freeman. They're always, you know, pretty far down here. Not a lot of touchdowns, pretty low yards per carry. I don't think they're going significantly high in leagues, but still try to stay away from these guys. Josh Jacobs is another that underperforms in almost all of these. You know, only one touchdown here. You know, I know he had a really good rookie season, but he just doesn't really perform that well in a lot of these. So you also stay away from Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon. Let's see if I can find them. Right here. Yeah. Again, you know, two guys that are going decently high in leagues, but you know, in almost all of these, they're pretty far down. I know Eckler's a bit more receiving back, so if you're in a PPR, then you know, maybe he'll have some higher value, but you know, neither of these guys are performing all that great in any of these, so stay away from them. And one more guy, Le'Veon Bell. I know he had kind of a rough year last year, and even in camp this year, they're saying he's not looking too great, but he's done, you know, pretty well in a lot of these. You know, 13 touchdowns here, over 1,000 yards rushing. So, if he's starting to fall in leagues, maybe look to get him at your running back 2 flex, because you know, in these he's looking decent, not great, but not terrible. Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones also, performing pretty consistently top 10. So definitely, if they're available for a low RB1, high RB2, I would definitely snag them. So yeah, real quick in conclusion, definitely take Zeke or McCaffrey if you have top 2 picks. If not, look into Kamara, Chubb, or Barkley. I'd say a tier below those guys is Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those 3 guys are pretty consistent in all of these simulations. And then Derrick Henry always performs decent. I don't know if you'll be able to get him. He's going pretty high in leagues, and in a lot of these he's barely breaking the top 10. So maybe. And then Mark Ingram, I know he slips pretty far down in a lot of drafts, but he does pretty well in a lot of these. Usually a good amount of touchdowns, only 6 here, but he usually has a pretty good amount of touchdowns, so definitely look into him. And stay away from Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, and Melvin Gordon. Alright, for wide receivers, so the top 5 wide receivers that usually go are Michael Thomas, Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Tyreek, and Julio. And I am fine with all of these except for Hopkins. In almost all these leagues, Michael Thomas is really high, Julio is really high. Adams finishes top 10, Tyreek usually finishes top 10, but Hopkins is almost never on that same level. He's usually, top 25, top 20 at best. So for whatever reason, he's just not performing well. So I would caution you with taking DeAndre Hopkins. Sort of the next tier of guys, the guys that usually perform very well: A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, Jamison Crowder, Willie Snead, Taylor Gabriel, and out of the rookies, Justin Jefferson is usually by far the best. I don't know what it is, but he's usually a lot higher. Marquise Brown, did I already say him? No, Marquise Brown, always very high. Jamison Crowder, there he is. Zach Pascal, surprisingly in a lot of these is top 10. I don't even know if he's on the fantasy radar at all, but definitely if you're looking for like a late round sleeper, I would definitely consider picking it up. There's Justin Jefferson, as I said. Willie Snead also very high. I don't know if I've said him yet. I think I did, but yeah, Willie Snead usually very high. He and Marquise Brown are usually very high, and then Julian Edelman is also usually pretty high up here. Did I say Taylor Gabriel? Yeah, I did. So Taylor Gabriel also, a guy you want to look up for. See, here's Hopkins, pretty low. Godwin also usually pretty low. So those are 2 guys I would try to stay away from. Let's see who else. So I know in this one Odell was number 2, but this is I think the first one he's cracked like top 5, top 10. He's usually very low, so I know he's falling a little bit in leagues, but be cautious with him. Amari Cooper and Adam Thielen also usually very low. I don't even know where they are on this, but definitely be cautious with them because they're usually pretty far down here. Another guy that also usually does very well right here is Keenan Allen. I know he's a little bit lower in this. He might have gotten hurt this season or something, but no, he's usually one of the top performers. So I would definitely buy high on him. Yeah, I don't even see. There's Thielen. Watkins is usually pretty low too, and I don't even know where. DK Metcalf also usually very low. Try to stay away from him if you can. He has not performed well, and I don't think in any of these leagues. What am I looking for? Amari Cooper. Yes, see Amari Cooper way down here. 2 touchdowns, 52 receptions, 600 yards. And he's usually pretty far down here, so I would advise you to stay away from him. Juju also. I don't know if I passed Juju Smith-Schuster. Oh, there he is right there, Juju. Yeah, again, another guy that's going pretty high, but always performs, you know, pretty poorly compared to the guys drafted around him. So stay away from him. And then Henry Ruggs is also a receiver that's, I know it's going top 50 a lot, but he's, you know, he's usually hard to find on this. He's so low, so you stay away from him. Allen Robinson's actually usually pretty high too, but you know, these I would advise taking, you know, Michael Thomas, Julio, Tyreek, and Devontae are usually pretty high up there too. And then, you know, as I said, Keenan Allen, AJ Brown are sort of the next tier of guys I would be looking for. Jamison Crowder, Willie Snead, Taylor Gabriel, Marquise Brown, Julian Edelman, and Justin Jefferson are, you know, the third tier of guys that are usually you could get in a bit later rounds and are usually, you know, really high up here. And then Zach Pascal and Adam Humphries are two sleepers, you know, that I don't think are even on the fantasy radar, but are usually, you know, really high up here for some reason. And then wide receivers I'd stay away from are Odell, Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Juju, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, and Henry Ruggs. And now for tight ends. Alright, tight ends are definitely interesting. In a lot of leagues, Kelsey and Kittle are going 1-2. I hate to say this because I'm a huge 49ers fan, but do not take Kittle. Right, according to these Madden simulations, I would advise against taking Kittle. He performs decent, usually top 10, maybe top 5, but he's definitely not, you know, 1-2 ever. Kelsey can get up there sometimes, but he's usually not significantly higher than any of their tight ends. So I would sort of advise against taking Kittle and Kelsey that high. Zach Ertz and Mark Andrews are usually the next two tight ends taken. Do not take Ertz. He's almost always on the bottom. I don't really know what's up with that. Maybe Madden just hates him, but he always way underperforms a lot of the other tight ends. Honestly, I would wait until later rounds to even take a tight end. Waller performs decent. Evan Ingram, so Gronk really doesn't do much. The tight ends that I've really seen perform well, Devin Asiasi, you know, the rookie third rounder for Patriots. I know he's like barely even on the fantasy radar, but in almost all these leagues he finishes top 5. I've played with the Patriots in this Madden. He's a beast. So I don't know. We'll see if that translates to real life or not, but I just know he should definitely be on your radar. Let's see, there's Kelsey number 2. Hunter Henry is inconsistent. Sometimes he's up here, as you can see he's number 3 right now, but a lot of the times he's towards the bottom. So, you know, be somewhat cautious with him. But I don't think he's valued very highly. Anyways, here's Kittle. Lee Smith is another one. And in some of these leagues he's finishing like number 1, like way above all the other tight ends. I don't really even know who he is. I don't think he's very high in the fantasy radar either, but you know, he's finishing really high in a lot of these, so maybe take a look at him for like a late rounder if you have a deep bench. There's Waller, as I said, decent, not great. Andrews usually does not do that well. He usually decent. He usually has like a decent amount of touchdowns, not a ton of yards. That doesn't really reflect here, but you know, he's a decent tight end. So if you can snag him, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th round, then maybe I would consider taking him. But I doubt he'll fall that far, especially with, you know, how greedy people get with tight ends. Jonnu Smith is usually pretty high. But the tight ends I want to focus on are Hayden Hurst and Austin Hooper. These guys are performing really well in a lot of these. I'd really advise taking one of them. Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, Jared Cook also performs really well in a lot of these, as well as Burton. What's his first name? Trey Burton, is that right? I don't even know, but he's another one that performs really well in a lot of these. Let me try to find him. Maybe not so well in this one. Maybe I'll have to take that back. Trey Burton, yeah. He's not that great in this one, but in a lot of these he's performing pretty well. Yeah, no, tight ends are definitely weird, especially, I don't know if it's just this Madden or what, but the guys that are performing well are not the usual suspects, not the guys that you're expecting. So like according to this, I would stay away from taking a tight end super early. It's pretty all over the place with who does well, but generally some surprising ones are that guy Aussie, Lee Smith, Hayden Hurst, Trey Burton, as well as, let's see, Austin Hooper usually does pretty well. Noah Fant has been decent, and some of these not great. Gronk is always very low, so you know, stay away from him, I would advise. Evan Ingram also usually pretty low, so, and there's Zach Ertz. See, these three are usually like three of the higher tight ends taken, and they're way down here, and that's the case in almost all of these. So I would advise against taking those guys, and probably waiting for a later round just to snag a tight end, or even, you know, rotating tight ends throughout the year, as depending on who's doing well. But the guys on my radar are, as I said before, Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, Jared Cook, Trey Burton, Jimmy Graham also usually does decent. I think he'll do pretty well in Seattle. Yeah, guys. So as I said before, this shouldn't be your only source of strategy going into your draft. Definitely do some research. Look at what players you're interested in, what players you think are going to do well. You know, read what the experts have to say. This is just, you know, one guy doing a few Madden simulations and telling you what he's found out. So definitely don't rely on this, but this is a somewhat of a helpful tool, you know. See after all these seasons have played out, which players overperform, which players underperform. Yeah, so let me know in the comments down below, like how you did in your draft, if you were able to snag any of these players, if you listened to any of my tips. And yeah, hopefully you can win your fantasy championship. That'd be pretty sick, and if you do, you got to give me some of the money. All right, peace.